Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria Male. I am a writer producer, and I am so excited to be here today to talk about music for children's television. Joining me today are composer Alex Geringas from the really haunted Loud House movie, and songwriters Doug Rockwell and Tova Litvin from High School Musical, the series, and Zombie, the reanimated series, which chef's kiss of a title. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be chatting with you all today.
Us too. Great to meet you.
Oh, great to meet you.
And what I especially love about the projects we're talking about today is that they're all Halloween themed, which is perfect for this
Oh,
month
that's
and
so
this
fun
time of
hearing
year and my spooky self. So I say
that.
we go ahead and jump in. My first question is for Alex. You were tasked with writing a Halloween song for the really haunted Loud House movie that had a rock edge with thriller influences. How did you approach blending these two distinct kind of genres and influences? And what elements did you focus on to give the song its spooky but energetic feel?
Well, like first of all, I grew up in Germany and we didn't, we don't have Halloween there or something like that. So I was like always I I needed I needed to come to the States to really understand what that is. And then Thriller was one of the first songs, I got introduced to. I of course knew it from Germany, and when this brief came in, I was like, when you get a brief like that, the first thing I was of course excited because Thriller is one of my, everybody's favorite songs. And when you get a brief like that, the first thing what you try to do is like, how do you make it sound Thriller, or how do you like help the reference, but not getting, too much into this? So I think I was like picking a part of it, which when in the bridge when it starts like darkness falls across the land.
Yeah.
So I took like this kind of organ part and trying was trying to base it on that. So that's technically what happens, and I get so excited because I'm meanwhile an Halloween enthusiast, like my whole family is. Like we spoke before, they're all afraid of spiders, and that was my inspiration. I was thinking of my daughters yelling like when they see spiders, and yeah, that's how it came across.
I love it. I think that's so interesting because Thriller is so instantly iconic, but to find a way in that's a little more less obvious, I think is really exciting, especially because that monologue, well, I could do it right now for you. The Terrence Stamp monologue in Thriller is so iconic.
Yeah. If you want to have a copy of Thriller, you always go to the original. That's always
Right,
the strategy when I hear these references and pitches. I always go like, oh, they want Thriller, so I feel like they want something in the vein of Thriller or the vibe
right.
or little, but they don't want exact Thriller because Michael already did it so well.
Perfectly. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then keeping it spooky, the theremin is a classically spooky instrument. I instantly think of Elmer Bernstein's score in Ghostbusters.
Oh.
But you paired it in your project with a heavy guitar. So how did you decide to use the theremin as a hook, and how did it become the lead hum for the crew?
Well, so I knew the director of the movie already. Like his name is Jonathan Judge. He's amazing. He already directed a couple of. He does direct the Loud House live action show. We did a live Loud House film together before, so I know he was kind of a rock guy. And when I just heard the theremin, which I had in my song, it felt like it was missing something. So I just was just jamming in the studio with my guitar, and I just doubled the melody. I thought, oh my God, that's a cool combination. So yeah, it was very organically like jammy, songwritery. That's how it came together. But it was fun.
You can never underestimate the importance of a good jam. So I love that.
Totally.
Doug and Tova, let's talk Zombies, the reanimated series.
All
How
right.
did you approach capturing the nostalgic and upbeat vibe of Endless Summer while also incorporating elements of the show's zombie theme?
So fun.
Well, I think that the task for that song was, even though the subject matter is kind of you're slowly losing your mind over time because you're trapped in an endless summer, it needed to still be an upbeat pop dance moment where it's like, oh my God, everything's so great. Okay, second verse, everything's maybe not so great. And then it just spirals out of control. So luckily in the zombies world, they kind of just follow it's pop music, so it was pretty easy to match and mix. And it just got we've been involved with zombies since the second movie was the first time we ever actually did anything with them. So we've been very familiar with just
We know the zombie
we
world
know the
well.
zombie world.
Right.
We know where everyone lives.
Right.
We know
You're honorary zombies.
Right.
what they eat. Like
They
like
eat brains. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, they
no,
don't
no, they
actually.
don't.
But
They
zombies
don't. Our
usually do.
zombies do not eat
We're
brains.
very
That's a
friendly
really big
zombies.
point.
Yes.
Also think like summer by itself, like when you listen to
Yeah.
songs in summer,
Beach
they are nostalgic. Like, yeah, there's like one
Mm.
or two big pop songs that come out every summer. Cool, but like you're still listening to like a standard playlist of things from the past like 3 decades, and that's what I want to listen to in the summer. So it was supposed to be just very like feel good, like kind of just not basic pop, but basic
Mm.
pop at the beginning. And then they literally wanted the song to fall apart. And they're like, "Oh, when we say we want it to fall apart, we want like the track to like start dying." So that
Wow.
was
Yeah.
yeah, and that was really, really fun
It
because
was.
you don't usually get to kill a track while you're working on it.
Yeah, just destroy it.
Yeah.
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 It was harder than I thought, but fun.
It was a good time. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's what a fun challenge, and again, like brief to receive.
Yeah.
Oh,
For
and
to
they're full of them. Like especially the series, it's just been such a delight working on it because every brief is so completely different. Some of them are off the wall,
Yeah.
okay,
Mm.
like completely nuts. And that's like one of our favorite things to do is be like, okay, like you need us to write this type of song that doesn't usually do this, but you need these 5 things to happen. Okay.
And there's a
Yeah,
trust. So I think we
Yeah.
formed a trust over time to where it kind of is just like we know that you're gonna get this across the finish line. Do what you feel is right in the
Yeah, they're
moment.
great that way.
Yeah. So it was
Yeah.
always a fun team to work with.
I love that. Going back to Endless Summer, though, since I want to endlessly talk about it, what were some of your, I know, Tova, you mentioned like your nostalgic playlist. Like, what were your inspirations for the lyrics and the melody of Endless Summer? Did you draw from any specific references or experiences or memories?
I mean,
Yeah, one time I actually went into a strange magic shop and took a magic totem and got caught in an endless summer. So I lived the scene. They took it from me.
So you're very method.
Sorry,
it's
person.
very personal.
Right. No,
Lyrically, but I think melodically for me, I wanted to capture, I don't even think we talked about this, but like what I had in my head was like, earlier Katy Perry and like
Mm.
some Teenage Dreams and
Mm.
California Girls, like something that you just like, just have nothing to worry about at the beginning. Like at the beginning, it's like super great and supposed to be a good thing. What about
Yeah.
you? Did you have anything?
No,
Boys, like
I agree. Anything that gives that's just summer carefree
Yeah.
vibe,
think-
school's out, like
Yeah.
the things to look forward to. But as far as lyrics goes, I mean, it's such a specific brief for that song.
Yeah.
The lyrical direction was really tied to what was actually happening in the story. So, if there's any inspiration from that we took, it's probably just the overall sonic palette of what it sounds like.
And even within doing that, like I do remember there were times where like I think the first draft things were falling apart, but they weren't falling apart quick enough. So you need to get there
Mm.
faster, but how do you get there faster lyrically because the sun hasn't melted yet, but you need to like depict that it's just about, do you remember that? Like that kind of, we had a few moments like that, but yeah, it was really just fun madness, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
Enjoyable chaos.
I mean, chaos can
The
be
best
fun.
kind.
Yes, for sure. Alice, going back to Loud House, the director, Jonathan Judge, who you spoke so highly of earlier, gave you the visual of hands coming out of graves, which led to the lyric, "So by a show of hands, who believes this house is haunted?" Which 10 out of 10, no notes, I'm obsessed. How do visuals like this influence your songwriting, and how important are they to your process? Do you like word prompts a lot, or is it just kind of a hodgepodge?
I mean, in that specific case, it was like, we started writing the song, like me and my co-writer Mike Himmelstein. We wrote the song like without having any visuals, and And it was really hard because we knew like he's gonna use it in this like big scene where the whole cast is on, and we knew also that in a certain moment we had to deliver parts for every one of the cast. And at this point in the beginning, it's just a good guess, to be honest. Like we were just trying to, invent couple of visuals which we associated with Halloween and with the scene, and luckily we found some which matched actually the scene. So in other situations, it's not like that. You're writing something which you think like, oh my God, that would be so cool. And if this happens, because you don't know, and then the executive producers really take it apart and go like, that was completely wrong. We took a song of Tova and Doug. So it's no, but it's exactly what what happens. It's you sometimes getting it right, and sometimes you're getting it so wrong, and possibly on the same day.
Yeah, or within the same hour.
In the same hour. But Jonathan is just such a great sport to work with. Like he actually is somebody who creates this very safe environment for everyone who's working with him. And he's like, literally, he told us, hey, just create some pictures which you feel should be in, and maybe I can match them with what I shoot. So it was a very different experience from other experiences I had, and a very enjoyable one. So yeah,
that's
I'm
amazing.
really proud of it.
As you should be. I think also finding a way, I think that it's an accomplishment in itself when you find like a really safe and productive way to collaborate with your director. I think the importance of that can't be overstressed.
I mean, as a composer, you're a filmmaker like everyone else, and you're trying to also act as a filmmaker more than a composer. I try that at least. Like I try to be very collaborative, just by knowing that a lot of these people, they just don't know until they hear it, or don't know until they know. And I rather present them like 10 versions. In this case, I didn't have to, luckily, but in other cases, I saw myself presenting like, version 1A, 1B, 1C with different different pictures, with different pictures which fit different visuals. It's every time it's a complete new journey, but that makes it also so interesting that you never know what happens to you in the next show or in the next movie.
It's what keeps it fresh. But going back to this huge number you had, like you said, you had to give a part to a bunch of different cast members. So with the 10 cast members singing for your song, you arranged their voices like an orchestra to keep everything clear and exciting. Can you explain how you decided where to place each voice and why you feel that approach works so well for the song?
So I had way more than 10 singers, because the cast was like around the lead singer, and they were like 10 or 12 actually really cast members, but then I had like 3 background singers.
Oh wow.
So even though the background singers were not visible, I had to place them somewhere in the stereo sonically, that they sound great. So I started actually, again, before I had any picture, I started to actually place them like in an orchestra. First violins, second violins, violas, cello, and then a little bit further, the trumpets, the other brass, the woodwinds, and everything. And so that I really tried to give everyone like a space. But it was also so much guessing that in the end, when I delivered it, I had to deliver it straight all in the middle, so that actually the dub guy, because in the scene, some characters were running like from right to the left, from, the camera was like a handheld, which went to every direction. So it was absolutely impossible for me to know what actually happens. But
even though I feel like you just did a really great job reenacting it, I felt like I was there on set.
It was exactly that scene, but it was really, sometimes, like I said earlier, sometimes you have to demonstrate the move, what actually is possible and it doesn't have to be that this is the end version of it. And whatever the end version is now, like, the dub guy actually mixed it, and he put, when you see one character there, you really see my vocals coming from that direction. It's really a hard job to do, especially when you have so many young actors who also are supposed not to be super in sync. So it was such a big challenge. But like I said, like everyone got happy in the end. Like, there were so many people who were helping me to fulfill that. Like the mixer on stage, there's sometimes a problem when the mixers who are really mixing the whole movie are not very musical. But this guy was absolutely amazing. He did such a great job to bringing it all together.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think you also gave him a great number to mix. So it's, again, what we've been talking about, all about collaboration. Doug and Tova, Halloween vibes are also present in the recent season of High School the Musical, the series. The song Nightmares Come to Life is a haunting and atmospheric piece. What inspired your creation of this song, and how did you balance the emotional intensity with the musical elements and kind of interweave the two?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of going back to what Alex was talking about before with Thriller, since I guess it's kind of become the
Everyone references Thriller
iconic
from
Halloween.
Like, that's the one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
But it's like you said, it's Thriller, but not Thriller, right?
Yeah, it can't be Thriller, can't be pastiche, right?
But it was a big inspiration visually too for what they were going to be doing on camera. So we kind of just, again, we knew that song very well, but you go back and you kind of study. It's like, you're never going to beat Thriller, first of all. So we're not trying to make another Thriller.
No.
We're trying to get something inspired by in this time period, so kind of a revamped interpretation of that. And then within that, I mean, as far as the storyline goes.
Well, this was also, I think a lot of Halloween and holiday numbers. It's like, now we need everyone to sing on this.
Yes.
In our case, everyone was going through something different, and their lyrics were supposed to be symbolic of what they're going through. And of course, it's high school. Every character is dealing with like self-discovery, and there's a love triangle, and there's so many different, very interesting things, by the way. But you have, with some of them, one line. Like, you need to encompass this whole
in one line,
seasonal journey in one line. And that's always harder, because when you have more space, like they gave, I think, two main characters got a couple extra verses, and okay, cool, we can kind of break this down and build it a little bit. And with the one-liners, it's always like, okay, cool, how do we sum up their entire life with one line?
Right.
Yeah, brevity is always so much harder than it seems.
It is so much harder. So that always takes a little bit longer. And then just lyrically finding a very universal chorus.
Yeah.
Nightmares came pretty quickly, because it was that makes total sense, because we have nightmares and it's Halloween and there's night. Let's do that.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite things about that song that we got to do in the production was for that the musical breakdown before the bridge, where it was kind of like spooky EDM drop in a sense, where I was actually kind of inspired too by like the Haunted Mansion ride at Disney. It's like the music that goes on in there, and then just kind of taking that and putting this really hard, like hip hop driven beat behind it, mixing with like a lot of cool, just different strings and synth elements, and just throwback kind of Halloween motifs and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun to do. It's one of those things too, like we're kind of sitting and I'm producing. I'm like, this is either gonna work so well or it's gonna be a complete disaster. We're stepping back and it's like, oh, this kind of worked. This is kind of cool. And that's where they had their kind of big dance break, which was reminiscent of Thriller. And it was really cool to kind of watch the whole thing.
Yeah, because I think the way they staged it was very intentionally an ode to Thriller.
Yeah, it was.
Which art too. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was great to see it afterwards. Because again, like you said, like you don't know what's gonna happen. they're in high school, they're running around and they're having feelings, and then suddenly there's like zombie versions of them. We're back to zombies, and like
Of
you're like,
course.
oh, okay, let me give you what we think should work there. Here.
Right. I feel like that's how you know, or at least in my writing and producing, that's how you know you're on to something really good. Is you're like, this is either the best thing I've ever done,
Yeah.
or it's I'm never gonna work again. It's gonna be the worst thing that I've ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
We're
cool.
never
Going
hard on
back.
ourselves ever.
No,
No
create.
pressure.
No, no, creatives?
No.
No. Um, so still on High School Musical, maybe getting a little less spooky. Speak Out is such a standout track that tackles important social issues. So I was wondering if you two could discuss your collaborative process with Joshua Bassett and the message you aim to send with that song.
Yeah. I mean, we had worked with Josh before. We did a song called Finally Free with him.
Last year.
Right, last year.
What came out last?
Yes. And it was a really great combination because he's a great writer too. Like he's not just a face on screen. Like he's an artist. He's a great writer, great with melody. And it was just it was one of those sessions where the song kind of you're in the session for like 3 hours, but
Mhm.
30 minutes of that was writing, the rest was just hanging out.
Yeah, it was.
So we were really excited to be paired with them again. And this, I think, too, we got done. We did it over Zoom because they were still filming in Utah, right? I think
I don't remember where they were filming, but it was
it
close
was a
to the
quick. It
wire.
was yeah,
He had a very
right.
busy
We had to get
schedule.
it done pretty quickly.
And it was an interesting assignment because it was the first time those two characters were
Vulnerable with the
having a duet. Two
right.
male characters were having a duet.
Very vulnerable.
And it was supposed to be a very vulnerable moment. It wasn't supposed to sound super finished. It was literally just them like playing guitars in one of the college dorms. And it was interesting. And actually Josh has talked about this since in the media, because he was like, in the song, one of the guys starts kind of talking about, like, the first opener is like, I call my dad, but we never talk. And
Mm.
it basically him just kind of talking about his struggles, and then the next guy comes back and responds, and it turns into this duet. And apparently when they were filming that moment, and we don't ever find this out till later, right? But apparently like some of the male crew members came up to Josh, was like, that was really cool because you don't usually see like two males just being vulnerable about what they're going through. Like there's such a stigma to like men don't talk about their feelings. I think we're getting better,
Mhm.
but it definitely still exists. And like they hadn't showcased any of those types of moments really throughout the show in song. So it was actually really special to get to write that. And having Josh is always great because he knows exactly what's about to happen,
Yeah.
like to his character, like too, but he knows way better.
Insight. Yeah.
And also like, I mean, they're both such great singers, and it was a beautiful match for it because their voices are very,
Very
very
different, yeah.
different.
Mm.
And sometimes you write a song, because when you do a few songs for a series, sometimes you write a song, you're like, oh, well, that one's acoustic. Like, I don't know if that's like going to be as exciting for some people as the big opening numbers or the Halloween numbers, right? But it's one of my favorites now. Like, I just think it's just such a quiet, loud moment.
Mm.
Yeah. So I was really happy to be part of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Great.
Yeah, and then again, like how sometimes the most resonant moments aren't the ones where you're everyone singing and we're all homaging Thriller. It's where you can find the vulnerability and like address something that yes, maybe we're improving on societally, but we're not fully
Yeah.
there yet. So
Yeah.
thank you for walking us through that.
Yeah. And I also feel like it also, as a writer, gives you more options lyrically. Because like we
Well,
said,
yeah.
in certain songs we have so many cast members, we have to hit certain things, and this is just like expressing someone's like emotional journey is
Well,
a very
and
different type of writing
in
lyric.
briefs like that, I think you're able to pull from your own
Yeah.
experiences too more
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's just more space. And it's more of a general theme than some of the other big moments when you have to fit a lot of information with a lot of characters, like
Yeah.
I said before, very quickly. So yeah, there's in the quiet moments there's more space to be loud.
Mm, love that. This is a question for everyone. What are some of the unique challenges you face when you're writing music that's aimed for a quote unquote younger audience?
Hmm.
Well, I I think, like Doug said, sometimes you just know how it happens. Sometimes not. Like you just never. You basically never know what if it will be right or not. Like I think writing for, especially when you work for studios, it's always about the sensibilities of the show creators, about the sensibilities of the story and of the executive producers. It might be that a certain way of expressing, your way of writing a song for a children's TV show might work in that show, but the same approach doesn't work in that show at all. So it's always a new challenge, and it's always lyrically a new challenge to hit the right tone for the right audience. Like you write for 3 to 5 year olds completely different than to 5 to 7 year olds. And then there are executive producers who are in their 30s or in their 40s, and they think that a certain music appeals to 15-year-olds or to 12-year-olds, which is not quite true. So you always have to deal with so many obstacles, and you in the end you got to trust your instincts and do what you're doing anyway, writing songs. And but that's the challenge I'm always facing, that you can't repeat what you've done before. You always have to reinvent yourself somehow to write a new song in a new show.
Yeah, I feel like
That's
it's a lot of assumptions from people who haven't done it, where they think things are just so dumbed down and it's easy to write children's music. And it's really the opposite. And I think especially now we have insanely like good quality music coming out of this world. And I've always advocated for the fact that kids don't need music to be dumbed down. I was listening to Bohemian Rhapsody when I was 5. I loved it.
mm,
It was my
Mm.
favorite song. And like I could give you lists. And I think like good music is good music. I think the unique challenges are, you know, like you just said, Alex, like it's lyrical. A lot of times we're in a different world. We have different rules going on. Maybe we have magic, maybe we don't have magic. Like maybe we're in high, like you just really need to know your world. You really need to know your characters, and you need to be very, I think, intentional lyrically. That to me is like the biggest difference. Like you have to be make sure you are telling the story for the character that you need to tell.
mm.
Which I think is true to any music and TV. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you well, one of the things I think a lot of the producers, at least that we've been working with, I've seen a shift to where they don't want things dumbed down. They want music
Mm,
Yes.
to stand up against what's, popular today, which has been actually really
Nice.
great, because you kind of get to pull out all everything on it. Like, it's go for it.
yeah.
And lyrically, I think it also is a place that it is giving more space for creativity, to where you can kind of push the bar a little bit, because like Tova said too, like it doesn't need to be that simple, like it, as long as you're kind of getting the idea across. And listen, there's always little like jokes and Easter eggs and things for, like, if they're adults or the parents are watching, like little like, hey, like kids might not get this, but you will.
Yeah.
But I think overall, a lot of the younger shows with musical moments like we do, I think that we're seeing a much bigger surge of just music very similar to popular music that's out there.
Yeah.
Of
I
course, sometimes it's going to be very specific, as with any musical. It will not stand
yeah.
on its own if you take it out of that moment.
I
But
feel, yeah.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
feel I feel I always before I do a new pitch or write for a new show, I always try to remember my artist days, and
Mm,
not being like a writer for children's
Yeah. Yeah.
animation,
yeah,
because that actually like in that time, when I was doing my own artist projects, I was like completely free of everything. I was just trying to do what I want to do. That's how I also see pitches nowadays. And
Yeah.
like, like we sometimes get them because we're doing something nobody nobody expected, but sometimes we fail completely because we exactly didn't do what they expected us to do. So you can't always rely on what people want you to do. And as an artist, you don't. You just do your thing. You just do it like,
Yeah.
hey, this is Thriller reference. Great. I got it, but I do something what I feel, what I feel belongs there. So yeah, a great friend of mine who's a great music executive at DreamWorks, she has in her office like there's no kids music, just good music, and that's my slogan for life.
No,
Yeah,
that's
true.
so true. And it's funny because last night we're at this mixer and we're meeting all these delightful people. And there's a composer who composed for a movie that we've written songs for. We've never met. We meet, and he brings up one of the songs, and this is a duet between two cartoon characters, right? It's like a ballad. And he's like, there's got to be some pop punk emo influence here, like, and you would never know because it's just like this really cute like fish ballad, and
That's
yeah, so weird as they are, but he was
Naturally.
like literally that's the background, right? And that's because you do have, to a certain extent, you, depending who you're working with, you have that freedom to be like, okay, how am I going to uniquely translate this, right? Because at a certain level, all our peers that do the things that we do are extremely talented. Like the talent's all there. So it really is a preference at the end of the day of who's making the decision on the executive level and so forth. So all you can do is be as you as possible. And it works perfectly for some projects, and those are yours. And then sometimes it's just not a match.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I mean, I feel like as a millennial, I was raised on the children's music is just good music with like, again, if we're talking High School Musical and
You know what?
Disney, like the Alan Menken
Like,
Disney
yeah.
Renaissance
like,
movies.
it's so funny. This is going to be so random. We saw Green Day a couple weeks ago, and we were in the pit. He was right there. It was amazing. And I'm looking around SoFi. I'm like, oh my God, all these people singing. I don't know where this thought comes from. I'm like, you put every person who loves the song Circle of Life in an arena. Like it would fill worldwide. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my thought, because like that wasn't just our childhood. Like that's like, it's multi-generational. It
Yeah.
just spans across. It's just so powerful. And I think
Look what people in our targets group are listening to today. I mean, if it's Biba Doobie or Arctic Monkeys or whatever, these are like amazing artists. Like the most kids. It's a very wrong thing to think that kids don't deserve anything amazing, or you can dumb down, you can do simpler. Also, I sometimes have a big problem with the word kids music because it's not what we're doing. Like maybe other people who really do like kids music and go on tour, this is a complete different genre. This is
You're right.
definitely not what we're doing. Like when
Because you're storytelling as well. It's not just music.
Exactly. That's how I feel about our profession. We're more storytellers than composers and songwriters.
Yeah,
I love that.
I agree.
Amazing. I want to circle back to something, Alex, that you mentioned, and I'm just curious because I'd love to hear it teased out a little bit. How do your creative processes change when you're writing music for different age groups? Like if you're writing something for a younger, maybe like elementary school, middle school audience versus something for teenagers?
I mean, we kind of answered that already in the last couple of minutes. Yeah, but
Lyrically, I think is the big difference.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I mean, sometimes I think sometimes, listen, there are when it gets younger, sometimes if the production's too big, it could be a little too daunting and scary. So you can eliminate some elements, so it's a little more simplistic, so you're not kind of overloading. I think lyrically is probably the biggest thing. It could be simpler. But also it's all sorry, I was just going to say it's also dependent on the story too. If it's a younger show, the story might be a little bit more easy to follow with it doesn't not going off on all these side quests of like, well, there's an emotional relationship happening here and there and there. So the lyrics are always going to lend themselves to the story.
And you're going to have depending who you're working with, what team, what age group it's for, you're going to have different kind of safety boxes. We've been doing an animated show with Marvel, and we had a great time with them. We did like a few different episodes for you know what I'm gonna say. We had a few different episodes we did for them. They always were like, great, we love this, we love this. And then there was like a really badass character, and they wanted like a rock Joan Jett kind of moment.
Okay.
And it was a character who kills people with her voice. Like I was learning all this because I'm not like a Marvel freak. And we write like to us what is a benign lyric, which was like, I'm gonna light the gasoline.
Yeah.
It was
Light it
something
up,
like
something
that.
like that. Yeah.
And we get an email
It's like,
that is, this is great, but please change this line because Marvel cannot support arson. And it was from a friend
to
of
know.
ours. Like, yeah, no, I'm like, okay.
I also don't support arson.
I know.
Can we just go around and say no one supports arson on this panel?
No to arson. No to arson.
No, and it became like this thing we just say now, like we cannot support arson. And we like laughed with the crew about it because obviously like it came from, you know, legal or whoever it came from. But those are the types of things that like, okay, we might watch certain ways we say things, but it's actually
we've gotten things across the finish line that we were shocked were not flagged. I don't know. I just know that there were moments that we were like writing something and we're like, oh man, this is not gonna
they're not gonna let it fly, but we love it. It's so good.
Yeah,
they're gonna know it's good. They'll
and
just have us change it. And
it's like, oh no, this is great. We're like, okay,
are you sure?
Yeah.
Smile and nod.
I mean,
yeah. No, I
not that it was anything bad. It's just like, you know,
we wouldn't.
A little edgy.
I always find inspiration in my two daughters when they were younger, and I totally can mirror that what you said, Tova. Like one of my girls, she was my younger one actually. With 7 or 8, she started to listen to Queen, to Bohemian Rhapsody, and then she found so many Queen songs which I never heard in my life, and I was thinking like, why is that young soul actually listening to such an old group? But then I realized as she played me more and more of that, oh, she's not a young soul, she's an old soul. She has absolutely, she finds so much depth and deepness in these songs, which I never, because I'm a kind of crazy person, I never saw in these songs. And I really refound Queen for myself through her.
I love that.
A lot of us feel things at a very young age.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
And I think that's like the magic of music too, because it's intuitive. And I think sometimes when you respond to something when you're young, you can't fully articulate why. And that's kind of the beauty and the gift of rediscovering something when you're older, because then you have the language and the know-how and like y'all, the technique and the craft to be like, this is why I like this, or I understand why this appealed to me. And oh my God, I can't believe they were doing all this with the arrangement and that. Whereas when you were 6 or 8, you're like, this is just a nice song, or I love this. It makes me feel happy. But it's kind of
a lot of times it's the marriage between melody, arrangement and lyric that if you are too young to understand one, there's still an energy that you're feeling. I mean, rediscover it when you're older, like, oh, that's why, it hit me.
Totally. I remember when I was 9, my father came into my room and said, son, it's time that you listen to really good music. And he gave me the Red Album of the Beatles. Oh, and then there were so many songs where I felt like, oh, that's how love feels. Like whatever love was in that thing, I had no idea or no concept what it would be. But through this album, I had like so many feelings where I thought, oh, that must be love. and then way later, when I met the woman of my dreams, to whom I'm married since 20 years, I realized, oh yes, through all the lines which led me through other relationships and everything, I realized, oh my God, the Beatles were right. That's how I feel like.
She is the Red Album, and this is how I know.
The Red Album, and the Blue Album, and the White Album. So, she's the one, yeah, totally. No, but really, that's what music can do, and why hold it away from kids? It's great. Let's give them. That's why I freaking love and super enthusiastic about my job. We we have the power to give that to the kids because we kind of lived through it, and we can just tell them how it feels like a little bit, or our version of that.
100%.
I love that. I feel like I could talk to y'all all day and all night about storytelling in music, but tragically, this is all the time we have. Thank you so much, Alex, Doug, and Tova, for your just absolutely brilliant insight and like personal anecdotes and just your craft into creating music for children's television. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
Bye.